All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here. This is Noelle. She's the community director here. So good to be with you all tonight. Happy Easter to all of you.
Easter.
And to those of you joining us online, welcome. We're glad you're joining us tonight for a very cool service together.
Yeah.
So welcome from whatever state you're joining us from, or living room, or sober living house, or treatment center. We're glad you're here.
Absolutely.
To give you the reminder, this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And there's always one thing we don't do. You can count it out. Shout it out on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. We do not do shame in this community. But there's some other things happening that you might want to know about. Noelle's going to give you the DL.
Yeah. I think before we get into that, we should ask the question that everyone is wondering
What's
here
that?
tonight. Where did you get your shirt?
I know, isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
Tammy Candidate, ladies and gentlemen. She did my shopping for me.
If anyone in the front row needs sunglasses to
This is my
for a
Easter
shirt,
get-up.
you just let me know. Nothing. It's a great shirt, Tammy. I love this shirt.
It is
It's
a
really
great
nice.
shirt.
Yeah. Well, if tonight's your first night here, welcome. We are so grateful you're here with us tonight. We have welcome bags right outside our door here. Get with a home team member and they'll get you a welcome bag. Inside it has a little bit about what we do here at Free Recovery Community. There's a little bit about what Wagon Coffee does in there, and there's some fresh roasted Wagon Coffee, as well as some just free swag in there. So grab one on your way out and just know that we are so grateful you are here with us this evening. In between services, we had an Easter egg hunt and Sober Souls that brought a cotton candy machine.
Cotton
It was
candy.
a great old time.
Yeah, I mean, it was hopping. Get
Oh,
it?
my
Like
word.
hopping,
Oh, my word.
bunny hop. I mean, it was hopping.
No, I
in
got
here.
it the first time. You didn't need
Okay.
to elaborate.
I won't say it again.
But thank you, Aurora Sober Living, and then Sober Souls for the cotton candy, and then the Easter egg hunt.
Transitions, sober living.
Oh, and Transition
He is
Sober
a
Living.
sober
Yeah.
soul, but
A sober soul who owns Transition Sober Living. So
she did make the flyer.
I did make the flyer. Isn't it great? Yeah. So thank you, Transition Sober Living and Aurora Sober Living. We appreciate you. Next up, this coming Friday, we are teaming up with Kerrigan, and they are having their second art show here at Free. For those of you who do not know, Colorado Artists in Recovery, they actually office out of Free here. Darren Valdez, the executive director and the founder. So all the artwork that you see in the cafe that's hung on the walls, that's a product of CARE, Colorado Artists in Recovery. So this coming Friday, starting at 6 p.m., we will be having the art show throughout the cafe and in the hallways at Free. So if you're looking for something to do on Friday night, come grab a cup of coffee from the cafe and enjoy the art show and come support some sober artists.
Yeah, artists in recovery.
Absolutely. So you have gotten so many questions in the past couple months about, Ryan, these stories that we're talking about in service, like what do they all mean? Can you do a Bible study? Like what are these about?
Which is always baffling in this community. But you all asked for it. So we're doing Bible Curious because, as Noelle said, I can't tell you the number of people who have come up to me in the last couple months and said, man, these stories, I've never read them before, but they just seem so interesting and I want to learn more about them. So we're going to do Bible Curious and see if these stories even matter today. So 6 weeks, me and Erica Birchfield will be leading this together. It's going to be right in the cafe, Tuesdays at noon, from noon to 1. So you can get your coffee on. You can bring something to eat if you want. You can get something to eat from the cafe. It'll be an informal setting. We're going to ask a lot of questions together and see where this thing goes.
Yeah. So like Rev Ryan said, it starts April 16th, 6 consecutive Tuesdays from noon to 1. Grab a cup of coffee and come ask some deep questions.
Yeah.
Next up, we are teaming up with Dynamic Dinners. A gentleman named Ryan Fila founded this company, and it's intentional sober connection. So we will be having them for 3 consecutive months. It'll be the last Friday of every month. So the dates are April 26th, May 24th, and June 28th. I think you and Tammy are doing the April one.
Yep.
Mickey and I are gonna do the May one. So dynamic dinner, and it's $55 per person. And so what that will get you the catered in meal that we will have. We will be in the cafe next door. I believe there's around 40 slots.
It gets capped at 40.
Capped at 40, yep. And so 3 Fridays of intentional connection. So if you're someone in this community looking to go a little bit deeper, with other community members, but maybe a 12-step recovery meeting, you're already involved, or maybe that's not really your thing, this is a great way to get enmeshed in some community. And there's going to be 3 different topics throughout for each month. One is confusion, clarity, and then destruction.
Yeah. That's going to be actually destruction, clarity, then confusion.
Yeah,
that was confusing.
You have destruction.
I have destruction.
Yeah, isn't that poignant?
And if y'all don't know Ryan, you'll get to know him. He's going to be, the dude is fire. He's going to be our guest storyteller in a couple weeks. And he's just doing a really cool thing with these dinners. So
yeah, and it's already a company that he has and is really
Yeah.
successful. So we're just bringing it to free. So if that's something that interests you, sign up. The QR code's on the flyer. You can find it on the website, on our email. And if you're someone that, man, $55 is a little too steep, get with Rev Ryan, and we have some options for you. So, and lastly, we have a ton of new merchandise tonight.
Yes, we do.
So if you guys did not check it out in the cafe, the entire wall has been restocked. Mickey is wearing a new hoodie here. Do you want to stand
Come
up?
on,
and just
Mickey,
show?
just stand
Why
on
don't
up.
you
Let
just
him see the new
show
hoodie.
that yes, you're a great model.
Man, that is
That's-
pretty, man. That's
Absolutely.
pretty.
But tons of new hoodies, spring shirts, a bunch of stuff. So check that out on your way out and grab a cup of coffee from the cafe.
Okay, thank you, Noelle.
I'm going to go this way.
You can go that way. So tonight, with us celebrating Easter, because we do frontsies around here, because tomorrow's actually Easter, but we do our service on Saturday night. So happy Easter, everyone. It is the comeback part 2, because we did the comeback part 1 last year. So this is part 2. And man, I want y'all to hear a little comeback story in our midst. We captured it on video, and here it is.
Mikey, I've been lucky enough to spend more of my life with you than without. Through the past 18 years, we've shared the good, the bad, and the ugly side by side. The one quality about you that continues to amaze me daily is your comeback story. At only 15 years old, I already knew you were the coolest kid in school. The sparkle in your eyes drew me in and never let me go. It started from sneaking out while you were grounded because you were caught smoking weed, to mixing vodka with your Gatorade before football practices, and all the parties in between with your brother and friends. You were filled with fun and good times until you weren't anymore. You lost your best friend shortly after high school to a horrible car accident. Your best friend from childhood that was your partner in crime. The one you'd drink till morning with, sharing any and all secrets, and solving all the world's problems. You saw life change so quickly that day. You enlisted in the military, where you found out a couple months in you'd be deployed to the other side of the world for a year. We had just started a family and moved into our first home. Right before deployment, your mom suffered a major heart attack, leaving her future of health unknown. Weeks into deployment, your dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He fought so hard for months, but lost his battle just weeks before your deployment ended. Then just a few short years later, you unexpectedly lost your brother as well. Families and relationships continued to crumble all around you. Drinking was always an outlet for you, through the good times and bad, until your solution turned into your problem. Holidays, birthdays, and special events loomed like a cloud over our heads, not knowing what the night would hold. You'd spiral so quickly out of control that we didn't want to be around you while you were drinking anymore. 4th of July in 2020 will be the night that forever changed you. Your pupils were so dilated from intoxication that your soul looked empty. Your addiction was winning and you had lost all control. I could have never imagined here today, stronger than ever after one single night. It was rock bottom and you have come so far. Your growth of self-control, strength, and patience continue to amaze me with every new challenge you face. Your past does not define you, but it has made you who you are today. We're lucky to have you here, and we are surrounded by new friends that have become family and a wonderfully supportive community to keep your faith alive. You have learned communication and boundaries to keep you strong in your sobriety daily, and now lead by example with others looking up to you. Proud doesn't even come close to express what we feel for you. You have grown as a husband, a father, and a friend. If only you could see what we see in you now. The light in your eyes sparkle brighter than ever today, Mikey. Mikey, you are a comeback story.
Woo, woo, woo! Mikey and Ashley and Millie, go ahead and stand up for us so people can see you alive in person, a real comeback story in our midst. So what y'all don't know, at the first service, at the 5 o'clock service, me and Ashley and Danny worked together over the past couple weeks, and this was a complete surprise to Mikey. He had no clue that he was going to be on screen, and he's just looking at it like this, and it was a very kind of cool moment. So thank you, Ashley, for being willing to tell that story. Mikey, proud of you, dude. I'm glad you're part of this community. He was baptized a couple weeks ago in the wagon. So awesome. All right, y'all, the way we get started here, speaking of comebacks, the way we get started here at Free on a Saturday night is with celebrations. We lift up the good. We start with the good. Maybe you're celebrating a sobriety anniversary or a birthday or whatever kind of anniversary or the new thing you're experiencing in recovery. We like to celebrate that together here. There is no celebration too big or too small. We believe that God joins with us in the celebrating. So very important part of our time together. We take 3 minutes for this. Mikey and Mickey, that's not awkward to say at all. Mikey and Mickey will be passing around mics. Mickey on this side and Mikey on that side. Just raise up your hand and give us the good news. They'll hand you a mic. If you're online, drop in your celebration on the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments, and we'll celebrate with you there. Let's take 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Rachel. This is my son Ryder, and we're going to get a trampoline assembled in our backyard on Wednesday, so we're pretty excited about that.
Hey, that's worth celebrating. All right.
I'm Kai, and I have 379 days free of fentanyl.
Way to go, Kai. Over a year.
Hey, my name is Ben, and this week I celebrated 7 years of sobriety.
Way to go, Ben, our facilities manager. Proud of you, dude.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I just celebrated 5 months last Monday.
All right, 5 months. Way to go, dude. Congratulations.
My name is...
Gerald.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
All right, who's taking it?
Okay. My name is Lorna, and I finally have 30 days of continuous sobriety.
Way to go, Lorna. We're glad you're here. Congratulations.
My name's Gerald, and I'm thankful for my new sober friend, Junior, and music and drums and art.
All right, man. We'll celebrate that. Friends, music, art.
Hey, my name's Chris, and I'm celebrating the fact that over 2 years separated from my family, I am now living at home. Me and my wife are no longer getting separated, and I'm here tonight with my son and my daughter and my beautiful wife, Natasha, and I just want to give all the grace to and all the glory to God, to recovery and to free.
Way to go, Chris and family. So glad you're here.
My name's Scott, and I took a direction this week and got a part-time job at a rehab and a detox.
All right, way to go, Scott. Congratulations. Sometimes we do take direction, don't we?
I'm Dara, and I'm really grateful to have my mother and my cousins, my family, and friends here tonight.
All right, Dara and family and friends. Glad y'all are here. Anyone else? You got 10 seconds if someone wants to take us out. Right here? Right here. Oh, we got two. We got two. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Jenny, and tomorrow Craig will have 1,000 days.
1,000 days sober, Craig. Way to go, dude. All right, you get to take us home.
I'm Alexandra, and I have 65 days of sobriety today.
65 days sober. Way to go, Alexandria. So good to have you here. Okay, we're going to celebrate with our online people, and the Mrs. Tammy Kennedy is joining me up here on the stage, and that is a great dress.
That's a great shirt.
Well, you bought it for me. And I did
Thank
not
you.
buy this dress for her, but she picked it out, and it looks, I mean, it's fire.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we
Thank
do
you.
this?
Hey, Stephanie, she says, I'm celebrating 1 day clean from marijuana and cigarettes. I figured they should go out the door together. I feel good, and I'm doing this because I love myself. Time to start showing it.
Yeah, that's right. Stephanie, congratulations. Way to go. Glad you're here. Angela says, still celebrating my daughter's continued sobriety. Almost a year now, she has a beautiful 4-month-old son who was her reason for getting clean of meth. Angela, we're
Awesome,
celebrating
Angela.
your daughter and you.
And Zach says, 1 year, 14 days clean from fentanyl as well.
There you go,
Awesome,
Zach. Kind of close to Kai. All right, Tripp and Sharon said, I want to celebrate my niece who reached out to Tripp and I in February for help to get sober again off of opioids after relapsing. She has been doing so awesome, and we are so proud of her and pray she continues doing great. All right,
Awesome.
Sharon, we're celebrating that with you. Oh, this is a fun one.
Aw. There's Ken, celebrating the most incredible daughter in the world who attacks another big fear tonight, public speaking. So proud of you, Dara.
Dara's our guest storyteller. Good to have you here, Ken. Chance says, celebrating my daughter's successful surgery and is home and recovering even faster than we had hoped. So
Awesome.
glad for you guys, Chance. Yeah, good news.
That's it.
That was the last one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tammy, for joining me up here. Always good to have you up here. Oh, I'm going to keep that because we have one more special thing to do. Yeah, where's Jen and Carter and Madison? Come join me up on the stage. This, too, was a surprise in our first service. Not so much of a surprise anymore, but just as special. I got with Jen and said, hey, Jen, Ben celebrates 7 years of sobriety. Would Madison and Carter be willing to write a little comeback story about Ben? And they just totally knocked it out of the park. So y'all are going to read that to us, right? This is about Dad, isn't it? Who just celebrated 7 years. Why don't you guys, yeah, you can stay there. And I'm going to try to hold this as close to your mouth as possible.
All right. Dear Dad, congratulations on 7 years of sobriety. 7 years ago, we were 3 years old and 1 year old. We don't remember much, but we've heard that sometimes it was a sad time. We are so happy to be here celebrating with you. Because of your sobriety, we can do fun things.
I like playing video games with you. I like that you're able to lead my Boy Scouts. I like to go shooting with you. I love when you came home with a new puppy. I liked it when you were camping and you helped me earn my whittling chip.
I love when he came home. He can be there so I can read books to him. When Mom's not home, I love that he tucks us in and tells us a story or sings us a special song. I love when he can come to soccer games and be there to motivate me. I like when he goes to our secret fort at the cabin because Mom's too scared of the rattlesnakes. I love it when I get home and Dad is waiting there to give us a big hug.
All right. Things we are proud of from your sobriety. You are on a sober softball team, and we love to cheer for your team. We've seen you work out with your friend Jim. We've seen you get a new job that helps our community and friends. We've seen you go through hard times, but have overcome them. Do you guys want to read this part? Okay. Hopefully you can stay with your sobriety. We will be with you the whole time, supporting and loving you. We are so glad you joined the free community to help you stay healthy and sober. We love you, Dad. Dad, you are a comeback story.
Woo woo, Ben! Thank you, Carter and Madison and Jen. So glad you guys are here. Thank you for doing that. Man, we get our lives back and families, and we get to be there for all the big and small moments. And look at that beautiful hug. Ah, awesome. All right, y'all, we're going to continue this theme of the comeback, and this is the comeback part 2. So I had just graduated from seminary, and at this time in my life, I was serving as a part-time campus minister at the University of Denver and a part-time associate pastor at the church across the street from DU, which is University Park United Methodist Church. And it was Easter Sunday. In fact, it was my very first time giving the Easter Sunday message. First time ever at the church where I was serving, and I was in my 20s. This was all the way back in 2009. And the problem was, well, because of some of my experiences and some scholars and theologians that I was reading, well, I just had all kinds of significant questions about a dead guy who was in a tomb for 3 days, dead, coming back to life. And that whole week, like leading up to Easter, I was asking myself, man, how do I go and stand in front of my people and give any sort of meaningful message at all? I mean, what do I say to them? I can't exactly walk in and say, Happy Easter. And by the way, as your pastor here, I have some significant questions about the whole Easter story. And I'm an Enneagram 4, and that means I'm not exactly good at, or it does not come natural to me to get in front of a bunch of people and just kind of BS my way through. And do y'all know what I said to him on that Sunday, Easter Sunday? I don't really remember. Be honest with you, it was 15 years ago. I can tell you that in thinking back to it, I'm sure that it was highly academic, that I quoted a bunch of scholars and theologians to prove my point, because proving my point is very important, and trying to convince you to see it my way, very important. Keep in mind, I was also active in my alcoholism at the time. I did not get sober until 2013. And do you know how they responded that Sunday morning? Yeah, I'm not really sure either. I mean, it was 15 years ago. I don't remember. But you know what I do remember? I remember driving to the church on that Easter morning and all the anxiety that was in here. Because, see, I was raised in a religious culture, a church culture, and maybe you had a similar experience. But in this religious culture that I was raised in, I mean, the literal bodily resurrection of Jesus was like central to the whole thing. It was a central belief. You don't mess with that one. You don't question it. And it wasn't just that belief, but it was all the beliefs that surrounded that belief. Starting with that when we were created, you as humans, me, were such bad people, we're awful creatures because of this sinful nature. And so when God looks at you, God really can't stand to look at you. God just kind of gets sick to the stomach. And this God, of course, is really bloodthirsty. I mean, there's got to be some bloodshed. Someone needs to die for this. And God is so good. I mean, this is the good news that I was told. God is so good that you should have died. You should have been killed. But instead of you, the good news is God is going to send his only son, Jesus, to die a very horrific death in your place. It should have been you, but it's not. In theological terms, this is called substitutionary atonement. Jesus became the substitute for you. And I know some of you are sitting here thinking, wait a minute, this sounds a bit like a child abuse, and we're celebrating it. I know, right? And then after Jesus died this horrific death on a cross, his dead body was taken down, and then he was placed in a tomb for 3 days, and then the tomb was empty. Christ is risen. And see, it was very important to us because we could then be able to tell who's the real believers and who are the non-believers. We could be able to build the boxes of who's in and who's out, who's in when it comes to God's love and who's not. And if you're the non-believer, well, I hate to tell you, you have a very terrible afterlife waiting for you. And our goal was to convince you of this so-called historical fact. And y'all, for a long time, that's been kind of my beef with religion and so much of the church, because it can be so hyper-focused on having the right head beliefs. And see, that allows us to control people and put the people in boxes. We know who's in and who's out. And I have to be honest with y'all, all that stuff is so uninteresting to me now. Because questions that I think are far more interesting are questions like, are these beliefs that you have, are they transforming you into becoming a better person in the world? In other words, are these beliefs you have about Jesus actually making you more like Jesus, more loving, more compassionate, more inclusive? And if it's doing the opposite, well, then why bother? There's a really cool parable about a man who dies and he arrives up to the gates of heaven. And when he gets there, St. Peter is there. And he says, "Oh, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We've been waiting for you." And he swings wide open the gates of heaven. And the man is about to walk in. But he looks back at his friends, some of them atheists, and some of them Buddhist, and some of them God knows what. And the man says, "Peter, what about my friends?" And Peter says, "Man, you know the rules." And the man's about ready to walk in, but he remembers his reference point of Jesus. Jesus, the friend of sinners, the outcast, the one who is constantly with the broken and the desperate. And the man looks at Peter and says, "Thanks, but I think I'm just going to hang out here with them." And the parable ends with Peter breaking a smile. And he says, at last you understand. And I think it's why Mother Teresa said, if I'm ever to be a saint, I shall become not a saint of light, but a saint of darkness. I will always be found outside of heaven because I will be a light helping guide people still in darkness. In that parable, in the words of Mother Teresa, they point to something that I think resonates with so many of us here. And see, because we have this sneaking suspicion that the spiritual life cannot be about trying to determine who's in and who's out. And the spiritual life has to be more than just about sliding deeper into your comfort zone. Because y'all think about it. We got into recovery to get our lives back, but we stayed to be a light to others. And I know there are some people in this community who you've been told, I know this because you've told me, you've been told you cannot participate in the faith project. You do not belong. You are not welcome because you have not subscribed to the right head beliefs. And I hope Free remains a light in that darkness to remind you God is not kicking you out. You don't have to go anywhere. You're fine. And for some of you, I could ask you this question. Do you believe that 2,000 years ago, there was a man named Jesus who was crucified on a cross and put in a tomb for 3 days, his dead body, and then 3 days later, he resurrected, and he was walking among the people, so much so that if the modern-day news cameras were there, they could capture this moment on film and have it streamed onto your live feed on your iPhone screen or your TV screen? Well, some of you would start to give me the look, like, come on. And I might give you the same look. But I could ask you the question, do you believe in resurrection? Do you believe in new life and that God had everything to do with that? And that belief is actually determining the way in which you live now. Well, some of you here tonight, some of you watching online, you would start to light up. And you would begin telling me your story of how you were once dead and now you are alive in your recovery. You're more alive than ever, and your life isn't just about getting fat and happy, but now you actually go back into the darkness to rescue the others. And my brothers and sisters, that is the comeback story. That is the story of resurrection. That is the story of Easter. And see, when it comes to the story of Easter and resurrection, we always have to ask the question, why do these stories matter today? Because y'all do know the story of Jesus' resurrection. It's told in all four Gospels. In the New Testament, there's four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if you're a bit fuzzy on how we got to the point of the story of resurrection, I'll just give you a brief glimpse of Jesus' last week in a nutshell. It was on Sunday. He came riding into Jerusalem, not on a war horse, but on a donkey, which says something about Jesus, who he is, peace and humility. He comes riding into Jerusalem, and the crowds are welcoming him. They're celebrating him. They're shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. They're waving their palm branches. And then Jesus goes to the temple in Jerusalem, stands outside the temple, and he says, in 3 days, I'll destroy this whole thing, and in 3 days, it'll be rebuilt. And the people are like, Jesus, you could never do that. It took us years to rebuild this temple. How are you going to rebuild it in 3 days? And of course, he wasn't talking about that temple. He was talking about this temple. And then on Thursday evening of that week, Jesus gathers with his closest friends. They're called disciples. He shares a meal with them. They have dinner together. After dinner, Jesus essentially says to them, now I'm going to show you the most important thing in life. And he begins washing their feet, a tremendous act of service, even the feet of Judas, who later that night betrayed him. Because see, Judas thought he could hand him over to the Roman soldiers. Because Jesus has been a bit of a rebel in the Roman Empire. He's been saying crazy things like God's love is for all people, not just some people. He's been causing economic disruption in the whole imperial regime. They wanted him to die, and Judas was thinking, wait a minute, this is our savior, but if I can hand him over and get a little money out of the deal, it's going to be fine because Jesus is going to overthrow the whole thing anyway in the end. And so Judas hands him over to the Roman soldiers. He was arrested. The next day on Friday, he's put on trial by the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. They find him guilty. The crowds were no longer shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. They were shouting, crucify him, crucify him. And he hung on a Roman execution stake known as a cross, where he died a very horrific death. Blood was shed. And then later that day, his body is taken down from the cross and it's placed in a tomb, dead body, Friday, Saturday, and what happens on the third day? He is risen, the tomb is empty. And you know what's so interesting? All the Gospels talk about the resurrection of Jesus. All the Gospels have these appearance stories of Jesus appearing to the disciples, walking around with them after his resurrection, except for Mark's gospel. Mark's gospel is the shortest gospel. And it just leaves us with an empty tomb. It's almost like we're left asking, but what now? I mean, now what? What do we do? And if you don't know that story, it's really short. Mark's gospel is the shortest gospel. 2 of his followers, they got up early that morning. And they were headed to the tomb, and they brought their burial spices because they were going to anoint the body, which was a common practice in the first century Jewish world. And on their way to walking to this tomb, they're having a conversation together, and they said, who can help us roll away the large stone at the entrance of the tomb? And when they arrive to the tomb, they see that the stone has already been rolled away, and we get this. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Now let's just pause there because that's fascinating, isn't it? They weren't terrified. They weren't afraid. They were alarmed. What an interesting word. Now you do know the New Testament is written in Greek. Do you know what the Greek word is for alarmed? It's this fun little word, ektambeo. Say it with me, ektambeo. Ektambeo. It literally translates to amazed to the level of wonder. My brothers and sisters, when's the last time you were amazed to the level of wonder? Do you know, still to this day, my sponsor says crazy things like, don't ever forget your last drink. Why would he say that? Is it about romanticizing that last drink? Remembering the good feeling? Or is it about living in the morbid past and reflecting on the morbid past? No, it's the exact opposite. Remember when you were dying, isolated from everything meaningful, isolated from reality. You so badly wanted to stop, but you couldn't. And remember, you thought you knew how the story was going to end. because this is just the way it is and nothing is ever going to change. You were so sure. It was like you were showing up to your own life with the burial spices in hand, getting ready to anoint your own body. And then one day, in recovery, you discovered that the tomb was empty. And as you looked back, all you saw was the shell of your old life. You didn't have all the answers. You still don't know exactly how that happened. You didn't have all the answers for the empty tomb, but you knew that God was the source of all of it. And were you amazed to the level of wonder? You see, y'all, sometimes this resurrection stuff is much more about mystery than it is about facts. So that young guy in the white robe who was in the tomb, he says to those two followers, he says, don't be afraid. I know who you're looking for. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. Yes, he was here. Yes, he was dead in this tomb, but the tomb is empty. He's been risen. And go tell all his followers that he's already left here and he's headed to Galilee and you can meet him there. And y'all, this is how the story ends. This is the very last verse in Mark's gospel. It's the end of the Easter story. Check it out. Overcome with terror and dread, they fled the tomb. Now, he just told them, go tell everyone. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Man, how'd that happen? And wait a minute, are you sure this is the end of the story? I mean, because it's not exactly a great conclusion. I mean, it seems like there's some loose ends going on here, and it's like Mark's gospel leaves us with just one big question mark. What now? What do we do? You see, y'all, it'd be way too easy to get caught up in those debates of, well, was the resurrection, was it a literal bodily resurrection, or was it the gospel writers writing in a more metaphoric sense to show that something much bigger was happening, that God was involved in something much bigger? And the truth is, there is good and faithful scholars on both sides of that debate. But I can also tell you, if we're to try to engage that question tonight, I don't think it gets us much of anywhere. Because the Easter story, the story of resurrection, always asks us bigger and better questions like, where is God resurrecting the dead among us today? Questions like, how are we being the resurrection today? And I think that's exactly what Mark's gospel is doing with this story. He's asking, now what? And we as the readers, as the hearers, we're left to ask, now what? It's like he's asking us, are you going to be resurrection today? Living hope in the midst of darkness, in the midst of death. Are you going to let death and fear and silence have the last word? Or is there more to it? Y'all, why does this story matter today? Because I think it's a story that meets us exactly where we are. Because we don't expect anything new to happen either. We don't expect God to act. When you were dying in your addiction, or you were watching your loved one be nailed to the cross of addiction, you thought you knew exactly how the story was going to end. And yet, in your earliest moments of your own empty tomb, seeing the shell of your old life, maybe you were alarmed. Maybe you were amazed to the level of wonder, the mystery of God's grace. But for the grace of God, there go I. And maybe somewhere along the way, fear started to creep in. The kind of fear that silences. Do you all see how human this story is? It hits every human emotion, every human experience of anguish. And y'all, of course, new life and fear, of course they walk together. They have to. It's the way of the empty tomb. Do you remember when the very first time you had admitted you were an addict or an alcoholic or the loved one of an addict or alcoholic? I mean, it was scary. I mean, that was a dicey surrender. And yet somehow in that moment, fear and new life, they started to walk together. Do you remember the first time you looked into the mirror and you started taking inventory of your life? You started reflecting on some of the harm and chaos you caused. Remember when you started to write it down for the first time? I mean, that was a dicey surrender, wasn't it? Who wants to do that? And yet, somewhere along the way, fear and new life joined hands and walked together. Or how about when you went to make that really hard amends with someone that you had harmed? Man, you didn't want to go. You didn't know how this thing was going to turn out. You didn't know how it was going to be received. And you went, and somehow in that moment, fear and new life joined hands and walked together. You see, the tomb is empty. Now what? Well, and listen, I don't care what religious or non-religious beliefs you hold in here, or if you know exactly how the biblical stories went down, or if they went down at all. And the truth is, I don't think God cares either. But whatever you do, don't give up on resurrection. The world needs it. Whatever you do, don't give up on being amazed to the level of wonder. Don't stay silent. Because you are the resurrection of Christ that so many people need. They need your story. You are hope to so many people who so desperately need it. The tomb is empty. Now what? Well, now we get to go out into the world and be the resurrection. Tell the comeback story, the most powerful story ever told. And y'all, it's everywhere. It's in this community. We don't have to look far, do we? I mean, we heard it earlier tonight from Ashley telling the comeback story of Mikey. How the lights were out in his eyes. It was as if his soul had vanished, and yet here he is today, being an active father, husband, member of a community, giving back. We heard it from Carter and Maddie talking about their dad, Ben, how he gets to now be present in all these little moments in their life. He gets to be present for it. I mean, talk about a comeback. And in just a few minutes, we'll hear a very powerful comeback story from Dara, and I can't wait for y'all to hear this story. You see, that's what we do in this community. I want to remind you, it is our calling. I hope on the daily you hear God shouting, don't ever forget to tell the story of dead people coming back to life. It's good news. In fact, it's the best news there is. And I want to remind you, if you are part of this community, you need to know we are not becoming saints of light, but saints of darkness. Being God's light and love in the darkest places. And in this community, we will always remain on the outside of the gates of heaven so that we can go back into hell and help rescue the others. And if that's you, if you're here tonight or you're joining us online tonight, and you're just one of the ones who are stuck in those cycles of death, the hell that is addiction, the hell that is isolation. Well, I hope you at least hear tonight the three most important things about Easter. That first, God never gives up on you. God never gives up on the world. Second, no matter what you're going through, what you're facing, you need to know the story isn't over. Which leads to number 3. Death and darkness do not have the final word. You see, do you believe in resurrection? Because it's good news. It's the best news there is. So take a moment during this song and reflect. Where have you experienced the comeback? Where do you long for it? Where do you see it in others? What's the new thing that God is up to, and how can you be a part of it? How are you being resurrection in the world? Not just here tonight, not just in this building, but out there. So this song is called Easter Hallelujah, and it's sang by 2 sisters. Here it is. That was kind of pretty, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, y'all, if it's your first time with us tonight, you should know that every Saturday night we have a guest storyteller in the house to join with us to share some of their experience, strength, and hope around the subject that we're discussing. And I know many of you know Dara. She's been part of this community now for 4 years, so she's almost an OG. Almost. And so I know many of you know her. If you don't, you're going to get to know her really quickly. But I will introduce her with this. She had 2.5 years of sobriety, and then last March hit, and life was good. She got a new apartment, just took this amazing trip to Greece. Life was good, and in the midst of the good, she relapsed. She quickly got back on the wagon, connected to her recovery. She just celebrated a year of sobriety last week, which is kind of cool. Yeah. So there's like part one of the comeback. Then there's this second part of her comeback where 6 months into her sobriety, so just 6 months ago, many of you will remember this. I remember it because it was a Saturday night and Dara wasn't here in her seat. Her parents were online that night, but Dara wasn't here. Where's Dara? Dara fell into a diabetic coma, where she was in a coma for 7 days, and then she woke up, and 3 days later just walked right on out of there as if nothing ever happened. That's not totally true, but she did walk right on out of there. And so that's the other part of her comeback. I invited her tonight to come share this story with us, so help me welcome my friend, Dara Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen. So, Dara, are you less nervous or more nervous on the second time around?
A little less nervous round two.
Oh, that's perfect, because when we met, we've been talking about this for a month, by the way, and she let me know that she was nervous. She let me know short-term memory isn't all the way back yet. She's still recovering from this being in a coma process. But we're so glad you're here, Dara, so glad you're a part of this community. We got Mama Martha in the house tonight, a nurse who was with you through this process, other friends and family here tonight. So let's just start with what happened 6 months ago. On that night in September, what happened?
So it was just a regular night. Life had been getting back to normal. I was coming up on a new 6 months sober. I had gone on this trip to Greece. I had a new apartment. I have a career. Life's going good. I'd started dating again. I went on a date this Friday night. Like any other day, I started to not feel well a little bit later. I texted a coworker, hey, I'm not feeling great. I can't work Saturday. I'm just going to sleep it off. And the next thing I knew after sending that text message, I was waking up at Swedish Hospital, intubated, tube down my throat. I can't remember how many IVs I had. I had a giant one in my jugular vein. I had tubes everywhere. Didn't know how I had gotten there. And yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, and an important thing to note is, at least you told me, doctors and nurses weren't sure you were going to make it. I mean, there was you were on the brink of life and death and barely hanging on. You told me and I don't know what these numbers mean exactly. Some of you medical people, you'll understand this much better than me, but your body temperature was at 80 degrees?
Yes, my body temperature was at 80 degrees.
That's not good?
No, I'm a type 1 diabetic and my blood sugar was over 800. I'm not sure what blood gas is. I'm sure my nurse Megan does.
Someone's got to give us a little tidbit on what is blood gas after
Yeah,
service.
it was at a level incompatible with life, and I was told. I was also told that had it been a few more minutes later, my cousin came, found me, called EMS, and saved my life. I wouldn't be here. There's so many reasons I shouldn't be here. Yeah, here we are.
A true comeback story.
Yeah.
What happened when you woke up?
I'd love to sit here and say that's the first time I've come to consciousness in a hospital and not knowing how I'd arrived, but it's not. given my history. It's not even my first near-death experience. I immediately thought to myself when I woke up, I must have relapsed. I must have. It took the nurses several times, like showing me my tox report, explaining to me, like, no, this is not your fault. You did not relapse. You did not black out. Like, this is not something that you did. But the feelings were the same, and it was terrifying. My sobriety means a lot to me. I had that slip, and I had been working so hard towards getting back on my feet. I couldn't believe that I had made such a terrible mistake and ended up in the hospital again and ruined everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like maybe some of you have had them, a drunk dream, the relapse dream, and you wake up and you're like, oh my goodness, what'd I do? And then you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't do anything. It was a dream. But it can feel so real. So you were like telling the nurses, whatever you do, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, don't give me narcotics, right?
Yes. When I woke up from the coma, I was apparently not very nice. I was pissed off. I didn't know why I was there. I don't know where this came from because, I'm an addict. Every hospital stay has been me begging, manipulating to get more medication. I might as well enjoy my stay here. But, I woke up and I was like, no, you can't give me anything mind-altering. I'm in recovery, and when they wouldn't listen, I was like, no, you don't understand. I have a hat that says fuck fentanyl. Like, you don't get it. You can't give me anything.
You can't give me that.
Which I'm sure they didn't care. They're like, okay, well, that's nice. But yeah, that was my argument.
Yeah. You cared about your sobriety. Okay, so there was that piece of your life, that comeback. But can we also back up a little bit, because I think it's an important part of the story of you relapsed 6 months prior to this. So this happened when you were 6 months into your recovery. And it's important to say we don't talk about relapse here in a way that says relapse has to be part of your story. Because the truth is, relapse does not have to be part of your recovery story. However, for so many of us, it is, and we've got to break the silence on that too and lift up the stories of people who can relapse, go back out, but also then get back on the wagon and do recovery. And so can you just tell us a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, a whole lot of shame. I have pride, like all of us, a lot of alcoholics. We take pride in our sobriety. We count the days. I felt like, I had all this respect. I had this time. People looked up to me. I was proud of that. I started to get to the point where, I think I got this, and that's where none of us should ever get. Life was good. There wasn't really a reason to go out. It was as simple as I got COVID. I was isolated. I was at home. A couple things were bothering me, not tragic things, but, enough to be like, well, a glass of wine makes sense. And, if one makes sense, then, let's just black out for a week. And to come back from that was pretty hard and humbling.
Yeah. So what'd you do on the day you stopped?
The day I stopped was March 22nd, and I don't want to say I come to Jesus talk, but I did kind of have a come to Jesus talk with myself, and I got honest. I got extremely honest. I reached out to my mom that day. I reached out to Noelle, who was my sponsor at the time. I called Ryan, talked to Tammy, and I just let my boss, I told my boss, I was so scared to tell them. I just got brutally honest, this is what's happened, and this is not where I want to be.
And you just hung out here for I think if I'm right, it was 2 days of you just kind of being in this room.
Yes. In this room, I snuck my 145-pound Great Dane into this room because I didn't want to be alone and I needed to pray. So, I didn't care. The dog came in. We sat right here.
You just said that publicly, but I need to say publicly, animals aren't actually allowed in here.
No.
Yes, Dara did that. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I didn't know about that. But I showed up here. I just knew I couldn't be alone. And this place, these people, this room, this physical building is sanctuary to me. So when, I knew I needed to stop drinking, I needed to be somewhere safe. And so this is where I came, not with any purpose. If there was a meeting, I wandered in, even if it had nothing to do with me. I just stayed here. And I stayed in contact with other sober people.
Yeah. And you got a sponsor and you started really looking at yourself, and you're actually living and breathing and doing recovery now.
Yes.
So, Dara, here you are telling us the comeback story. And what is that story? If you can kind of put it in a nutshell for us, what is that story?
I think what I had come to realize was that there were three specific parts of the comeback story for me. It would be people, perspective, and purpose. And I guess the people part is the people in this room, the other people in recovery. My cousins, my family, my mom, Ryan, everybody in this community, in my meetings. I didn't do this alone. I didn't do the recovery from the relapse alone, and I certainly didn't do the recovery from the coma alone. I had a little help from God. I had a little medical help and family support. One of the things I mentioned in the last service was a lot of people we wonder what people would say at our funeral, or I don't know if anyone else is weird like I am and has thoughts like that, but I actually experienced that, I had when I woke up, I was in the hospital and I was looking through hundreds and hundreds of messages of support, of love, of talking to me as if I could hear while I was in the coma, everyone from my high school boyfriend to girls I went to summer camp with to extended family members, people actually telling me how much they valued and loved me, and I had never been somebody that thought I had much value. So that was pretty humbling.
Yeah.
What did I say? The second thing was the perspective shift. When I guess anybody who's come back, from addiction or a life-threatening situation, anything like that, kind of adjusts your perspective a little bit. And this time, it really was a lot about, you can close your eyes and not be here in the morning. It can be that simple. So my perspective changed as far as what to let go of, what to hold on to, who matters in my life, what relationships didn't matter anymore, what beliefs, weren't serving me, and what does matter and who matters.
Yeah. And what do you say about for those that might be thinking they've had a setback, it's the end, what's your word to them?
I forgot about this. What I would say about that is the purpose thing, kind of what we were talking about earlier is the now what. You wake up, you relapse, now what? You wake up from a 7-day coma, now what? What do you do with that? What would I say? When I woke up from the coma, I was hell-bent on getting to a small town in Tennessee, my college town. I woke up determined to go. I got to make some amends. I went back to some friends I never thought I would see again. It was kind of the beginning of where my addiction started. So I circled back there, and New Year's Eve, I heard a friend of mine is the songwriter. He wrote a song called 12 Steps, and one of the lines really jumped out at me. First, because I'd never paid attention to what he was saying, and second, because I was always completely drunk every time I saw them play. But I was stone cold sober, New Year's Eve listening, and the line in the song was, "A door will always open in the darkest of rooms." And that hit me. I didn't know how I hadn't heard that. So I would say a setback doesn't have to be the end of the story. The light can come in sometimes in the darkest places. Sometimes you have to be near death, near the end of your rope to see what's important.
Yeah. It's amazing how those experiences, and I have not had a life and death experience. I have come back from addiction, thanks be to God. But it's amazing how it puts things into perspective for us so that we can see anew. And Dara, I am so glad you are part of this community. And when she's asking these questions about her purpose, it's like, I try to remind Dara, you're doing it. You're doing it. You are a light in the darkest places, giving the gift back. I'm so glad you're here, part of the community. We're grateful for you. If you want to get to know Dara a little bit more, if you have any questions for her, she's going to be sticking around a few minutes afterwards. I know it's been a long night, but thanks for sticking around a few minutes afterwards. Dara Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen. Woo, woo, woo. Thank you. Beautiful. All right, y'all. Well, the way we close here on a Saturday night is very similar to how we begin. We begin with celebrations. We lift up the good, but we close with what we call heartaches. And maybe you're here tonight or you're watching tonight and you've been carrying around a burden this week and you have no business carrying that burden alone. It's why you have community. It's why we have a God who hears the cries of the people. So if you need prayer, encouragement, uplifting for, well, I encourage you to just raise up your hand, and Scott and Adam will get you a mic. And if you're online, you can drop your heartaches in the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments, and we'll join with you there. And we take 3 minutes for this.
So I'm actually going through like an ugly child custody battle right now. So I just want some prayers for that.
All right, man. Lifting you up during this difficult time in your life with the custody battle. Look at us. We got all quiet.
Yeah, it's super quiet around here. Like nobody. Oh, here we go.
Hey everybody, my name is Claire. I'd like everyone to pray for my sister Mary Francis. We lost my sister 5 years ago tomorrow, and she is actually the one that found her, so if we could just lift her up, that would be wonderful.
All right,
Thank you.
prayers for her. Yeah, thanks for sharing with us.
This prayer isn't for me, but maybe we should all just say a prayer for the world right now, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
You know? And some positive vibrations, and like it's super cheesy, but imagine what it would be like if there was world peace.
Yeah,
For
not
real.
cheesy at all, brother. I'm glad you mentioned that. World needs some resurrection, huh?
Hi.
New hope.
My name is Christine. 20 years ago today, I lost my father to pancreatic cancer, and I miss him every day. Not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. I love you, Dad.
Yeah. Lifting you up tonight, Christine. Thanks for sharing that with us.
My name's Danny, and I'd like a prayer for my daughter Bella. She's in jail right now. She's hooked on fentanyl, and I know there's a way out. So
Yeah.
please say a prayer for her.
Prayers for her. And there is a way out. We have living proof in the front row of just over a year clean of it. Prayers for her and you.
Hi, my name is Lynn. I have 105 days. The last 20 days have just been really difficult. It's pretty much every waking second I'm kind of perseverating on it. So just for that to be lifted a little bit.
Yeah. Lifting you up. Thank you for sharing that with us.
My name's Teray. Today I have 18 days. I know we don't do shame here, but
we don't.
I am moving through the shame that others have as I come back, and I'm kind of carrying that as well. So just pray for me while I move through it.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, Teray. Prayers for you. And Teray's going to be our guest storyteller in just a couple of weeks, and it's going to be powerful. I can't wait. Did we run out of time? Scott, that was a weird thing. They stayed all quiet until the end, then everyone's got something to say. Come on up here, dude. Man, you got cotton candy all over you. This guy was running a cotton candy machine at night.
I didn't get the dress code.
You should have my wife get you like a shirt like this. We could match next year.
2X. 2X, not a small.
Double X. It's a large, man. All right, shall we join with our online people? Get you close there. Your eyes can see it.
Janet, I lost my mom to cancer on Monday.
Janet, prayers for you during a time of grief. Greg says, praying my brother will beat this pancreatic cancer. Greg, prayers for you, prayers for your brother. I'm glad you're with us tonight.
From Roger, continued prayers for all the struggling with sobriety.
Yeah, lifting them all up. Brittany says, please pray for Aaron Jacobson that he finds his way to recovery. May our Lord and Savior help him to get the strength he needs to overcome addiction and enter his heart to know he needs help and to be able to seek the help he needs to change his life. May he find his comeback story. Thank you. Brittany lifting up Aaron Jacobson and I, praying for him and you.
From Stephanie, praying for the family of Jamie Lewis, a high school friend who died suddenly, and my sister's family who just lost Jim, figures to spine cancer.
All right, Stephanie, lifting up prayers. Susan says, praying for all my loved ones in their recovery journeys and for strength for my friend who is still fighting to get her incarcerated son mental health help. Susan, prayers for you and the family and those looking for help, hoping they find the help that they so desperately need. Thank you, Scott, for joining me up here tonight and for sponsoring this Easter party we had tonight and the cotton candy machine. Good to have you and Adam with us. Listen, y'all, if you have been impacted by the mission of breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection, I let you all know every week. But some people ask me, well, how are you funded? The truth is we're funded by you, the people. So your giving makes a huge difference here. If you call this place your home, your community, your tribe, your people, whatever you call it, we encourage generous giving here. It's how we keep one of the ways we keep the mission of breaking the silence thriving here. Thank you to all of you who have, some of you tell me it's a really cool thing. You've made this a spiritual practice in your life of giving it away, and it's a sacrificial practice in your life. So we always take the opportunity to say thank you and to tell you it truly does make a difference. There's a couple different ways to give in this community if you want to donate. The first way is to simply download the app, the Free Recovery Community app. It's free to download. All our content, guest storytellers are on that app. And there's a giving button on there. You can give weekly, monthly, one time, however you want to do it. We're grateful for all of it. Or you can go straight to the website, freerecoverycommunity.com. And there's a giving button there. Or you can do the same thing. Or there's the giving kiosk that cleverly have giving on the top of them. One is just outside this door, one outside these doors. And I will continue to remind you about the dip jar because it's all kinds of fun. The dip jar is just outside these doors on the table. It's a little thing you stick your credit card into. You cannot give more than $20. You cannot give less than $20. You stick your credit card in, you pull your credit card out, the thing lights up, and you get to feel all sorts of good about what you just did. And it truly makes a difference. So thank you all for being a part of that. Dara and Martha, and your nurse, Dara, sorry, I'm blanking on your name. Megan, do you want to come up here and join us in just a closing prayer? You don't have to say any, I mean, you can say something, but no memorized prayer or anything like that. It's on the screen. Because Dara introduced me to Megan just a little bit ago, and this was one of the nurses that saw Dara through her process of coming back. And her mother, Martha, who's been a part of this community for a long time, but joining us all the way from Georgia. Did I say it right? Georgia. Virginia, but Georgia's where you live now, right? No, I used to live in Georgia. Now See, I still got it wrong. I tried. I should have just said joining us from another state. All right. I would encourage you all, if you're comfortable with it, nothing magical about this, but just open your hands. It's a sign of openness, open to God doing a new thing in your life, in the world, in the community, being reminded that Spirit breathes in us and through us and all around us, and that the gift you just took, that breath you just took, it's a big gift. So be reminded of it. And if you don't know the set-aside prayer, it'll be on your screen. For those of us up here, it's on this screen. And it goes like this. We'll say it together. God, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth. Amen and happy Easter, everyone. Grace and peace.